If you want to be a leader that everyone wants to follow, and you want to be a leader that leads productive teams and stops the dysfunction and stops the backbiting and the loss of productivity and all the other things that happen with poor leadership, learn how to listen to their emotions. And that will be the single most powerful leadership skill that you can develop and deploy.
Welcome to the Insurance Leaders Lab podcast, designed for insurance professionals and leaders seeking inspiration, bold ideas, and actionable strategies. Our guests are remarkable individuals from various insurance industry sectors, and our host, Nina Shepard, has been an insurance leader for over 3 decades. Together, we explore what it truly means to be a bold and impactful leader and find personal fulfillment in the ever-evolving insurance world. New episodes are released bi-weekly on Thursdays. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice to receive alerts when new episodes drop. Bold leaders, frank dialogue, actionable strategies. Welcome to the Insurance Leaders Lab. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Insurance Leaders Lab podcast. Imagine walking into a maximum security prison and entering a room with no windows. In front of you are 15 cages. Each cage has a man inside, shackled hands and feet. These are your students, and your job is to teach them how to stop fights, arguments, and violence in their prison. That is one of the many incredible assignments my guest has taken on in his long career as a lawyer and peacemaker. My guest today is Doug Noll. He's a lawyer turned peacemaker who teaches high-performing individuals, leaders, and teams how to resolve conflicts and prevent fights and arguments in literally seconds. He has trained hundreds of thousands of people on how to de-escalate violence and conflict, from maximum security prisons to the Congressional Budget Office, where he has trained analysts on how to de-escalate situations involving members of Congress and their staff. Doug is the author of 4 books, with his 5th book on leadership empathy coming out next year from Simon & Schuster. Doug promised that he will share one skill that, even though it sounds counterintuitive, will allow you to calm any angry person in less than 90 seconds. This skill will transform your life forever. I can't wait to hear about it in more detail. Welcome to the show, Doug.
Nina, thank you so much for having me. You know, I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts. I know your show is pretty new, but I have to say that the selection of your guests and the kinds of topics that you handle are really amazing, and you're providing huge value to your audience. So I would just want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, and it's great. And for those of you that are listening, do your host a favor and leave 5-star reviews wherever you can, because that's how ratings are boosted. And that's probably the most important thing you can do for Nina. So please do that 5-star review. So let me describe first the problem that I solved, and then I'm going to dive into how I got there.
Yes.
And we can take it from there.
Yes, please.
So imagine you're a high-performing individual. You could be in a leadership position. In your life, whether it's your personal life or your business life, you face difficult conversations, uncomfortable moments, maybe some fighting and arguing, maybe people who don't get along, maybe you have people that don't get along with you. And all of these things create anxiety and discomfort and unhappiness. And you've tried everything. You've tried active listening, which doesn't work. You've tried nonviolent communication, and that doesn't work. You've tried to meditate. You've gone up into the mountains to work with gurus, and that doesn't work. And you worked with therapists, and they don't help you. Nothing works, and you spend thousands and thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours trying to figure out how to deal with this problem. Well, what I have developed is what I call my 90-second reset protocol. And with that protocol, you can stop fights and arguments forever. You can de-escalate any angry person in 90 seconds or less. And you can build instant intimacy, loyalty, and trust and become the leader that everyone wants to follow. And we'll be talking about that today. But my journey did not start there. I was not born out of the womb with this brilliant way of making peace. Very briefly, I was born in Southern California into affluence and privilege, but I was born with severe disabilities. I was born with 2 club feet. I was almost legally blind, partially deaf, bad teeth, bad eyes, left-handed. I was a mess, but I was gifted with a good mind. My childhood, although I was born in affluence, was extremely difficult because back in those days, kids like me were outcasts. We didn't fit in. I didn't fit in. I ended up being a swimmer, but I was taught to power through it, which was the best advice I could have gotten now that I know. Ended up going to Dartmouth College, Ivy League, came back to California after college, went to law school, and then ended up in the Central Valley of California practicing law as a trial lawyer. And I did that for 22 years. And I was very good at it. But I finally decided that being a trial lawyer was not my calling. And I ended up in mid-career going back to school and getting my master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies. And I was trained by the Mennonites, one of the traditional Protestant peace churches. And I left the practice. Well, I left as a senior partner in the firm. I left in 2000. I left $10 million on the firm, gave him 1 week's notice and walked out to become a peacemaker. And since 2000, that's what I've been doing. And the biggest problem I had was that I was being called into really difficult, high conflict cases, usually involving family businesses, estates and trusts, partnership disputes, corporate disputes, where relationships had been broken and litigation was not an option because it would destroy the wealth. And I didn't have any good way of calming people down. And finally, one day in 2005, I was in a mediation with this couple that had been divorced for 20 years. The ex-husband was suing the ex-wife for $18,000. They'd spent $50,000 on attorney's fees. Oh. And they couldn't even stand to be in the same room with each other. I mean, if there had been knives on the table, there would have been blood on the floor. And they were screaming at each other, literally screaming, vile obscenities. And I just sat there and looked at them and thought, what the heck am I going to do with this? And the thought came to me, listen to the emotions. And so that's what I had them do. And 4 hours later, they got out, they settled the case without my help. They agreed that it was stupid and they should dismiss it. And they walked out holding hands and had lunch with each other.
What an incredible story.
Right. You could have picked my jaw up off the floor with a forklift. I knew what I'd done, but I didn't know why. And then 2 years later, a brain scanning study came out of UCLA, Matthew Lieberman's lab, that studied this effect called affect labeling and showed what happens in our brains when we engage in this form of emotional validation. And basically what happens, Nina, is that when we tell somebody what they're feeling, it inhibits the emotional centers of the brain and reactivates a part of the brain called the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain. And it happens in 90 seconds. And every human brain is hardwired to respond this way. So you can be spitting mad at me, and if I validate your emotions, you're going to calm down. You can't help yourself. So I started teaching this, and people were very skeptical. And that led to, in 2010, starting the Prison of Peace Project with my colleague, Laurel Coffer. And we started working in the largest, most violent women's prison in the world, training 15 women who were all serving life and long-term sentences how to stop prison violence. And the first skill we taught them was how to de-escalate people by listening to their emotions. And then from there, we went on. In those days, it was a 16-week training. We trained them up to full-on mediators and peacemakers where they could stop any kind of problem in the prison. And in fact, they did. That prison got quiet. In 2 years, 2 years later, we got a letter from the warden saying that because of Prison of Peace, it could no longer be considered the most violent prison in the world, that it was really quieted down, and it was because of the leadership of the women in the prison stopping the violence. From there, Prison of Peace expanded. Today, we're in 15 California prisons, the Connecticut prison system, 14 or 15 prisons in Greece, and 3 prisons in northern Italy. And
that's amazing.
All the way through.
Wow.
So that's kind of the journey. Today I'm a mediator and arbitrator and peacemaker, and I get called in to help people. But my real calling is in teaching people these skills so that they never have to fight or argument again in their life. It's absolutely transformational how it works. So that's how I got to where I am today.
Oh, my God. Doug, I usually have something to say, but you just left me speechless.
Well, I didn't intend to do that. It's my story.
This is such an amazing story. You helped thousands of
Tens
people.
of thousands of people have learned these skills.
As you mentioned already, this 90-second thing and affect labeling. How does that actually look like in real life?
So, Nina, you're really angry and frustrated. You're pissed off. And you feel really disrespected. You don't feel heard. And you feel unappreciated and unsupported. And you're really anxious and worried and concerned. And this whole situation just nauseates and offends you. And you feel a little bit of shame and embarrassment because yet again, you're in a fight or argument, reacting the way you are, and the other people are reacting the way they are. And it just seems to be a never-ending problem. And the whole thing really makes you sad and unhappy and distressed. And really at the bottom, you feel completely abandoned, rejected, betrayed, and alone. And you feel unloved and unlovable.
Okay. So my arms are down kind of thing. Yeah. After that. And what happens? People just start crying?
Exactly right. Finally, somebody has heard me. And you get enormous gratitude. People thank you so much for listening to me and hearing me. People start to cry and they immediately calm down. Even though you weren't any of those things right now, you have experienced all of those emotions before in your life. And so probably triggering some memories. And you should have felt a sort of settling in your body. Right. And you're not even upset.
And I'm not even upset. Right. That's exactly what's happening. There is this settling emotion.
And what you're experiencing is what's going on in your brain when I label your emotions. And it, like I said, it happens there's not a human being on the planet that this will not work on. Because all human brains are basically designed the same way. And that's what makes it so powerful.
Fantastic. Now let's take it into the business context. If I'm in one-on-one, I can see how it works. But now if I'm in a team setting, if there are like five of us in the room, for example.
Let's talk about that. Have you ever been, I know you've done amazing leadership in insurance in Europe and here in the United States. How many times have you walked into a team meeting and everybody's pissed off? They're angry, they're frustrated. It happens, doesn't it?
A few times.
A few times.
In my life, a few times.
You think, what the heck am I going to do with these people? You affect label them. You call out the emotion, the team emotions. Look, you guys are really pissed off. You're really angry. You're frustrated. You feel completely disrespected. You feel like your voices aren't being heard. And you're scared and frightened because you don't know what's going to happen. And you just label the whole team. Calm down.
Are you suggesting I'm labeling the whole team at the same time?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So it's like a collective emotion?
That's right.
Type of
thing?
It's
called emotional contagion. And the best way to think about it is you've seen the documentaries of like antelope on the African savannah, and they're all grazing. Mm-hmm. And one animal sticks up his head, and then another one sticks up his head, and the third one, boom, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
You humans are the same way. It's emotional contagion. It's a way of passing on emotional information instantaneously between mammals. And we have the same thing. So you've got emotional contagion going on in the room, and so you can label the whole room and get rid of the emotional contagion and quiet people down.
Do I want them all to start crying at the same time?
No,
I don't really. Yeah.
What you want them to do is to feel like they've been heard and validated. Mm-hmm. And once they feel heard and validated, they calm down. Then you can engage in problem solving. And so you get everybody calmed down. And now what you do is you don't use I statements. This is something that my next book coming out, I teach this skill in the book. And I also talk about how leaders should never use I statements. What I want you to do is X. They could care less what you want. Mm-hmm. It's all about them. So don't use I statements. So you de-escalate the team and you say, so how should we go about solving this problem? What do we need to do to make this thing work? You open it up for discussion and brainstorming. And then as the leader, you have to decide what's the appropriate decision-making process right now. Am I going to be coaching these people and facilitating them to a group decision? Are we going to be using consensus decision-making, which most people have no idea what consensus, they use the word consensus, but they don't know what it means and they don't know how to do it. And so they end up screwing it all up. And it could be democratic decision-making where you take a vote where the leader doesn't have any power. The leader gives the power to the group to decide. Or it could be autocratic decision-making with consultation where you, the leader, are going to make the final decision, but you're consulting with people. Or it could just be autocratic where you're not going to consult with anybody and you're just going to make the call. Most leaders are going to default to autocratic because it's fast and efficient. But that often is the worst kind of decision-making to make. And that's where you're going to have the biggest errors, decisional errors, is when you make the decision by yourself. So working with teams, you have to choose what is the appropriate decision-making process we're going to use. So you calm them down, And then you got to think to yourself, all right, what do we need on the continuum of decision making? Where should we be? And then you employ that decision making process and lead people to a decision that you then execute.
Okay. That sounds as an amazing 1, 2, 3 step process. So to summarize, I sometimes need to repeat something loud myself. So
Right.
to summarize, if I am entering the meeting and I feel that the team is frustrated and there is a tension, then what I need to do in the first 90 seconds is to name those emotions in new terms. You are feeling
Right.
frustrated or tired or burned out, and let them, through the pause, let them settle down and process that.
Correct.
And then I can turn to how do we want to go about it?
How do we solve the problem?
How do we want to solve it?
Right. Exactly correct.
Amazing.
So let me talk a little bit about how to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's a 3-step process. Very simple to describe. I have to say that it takes practice to master this. Not a lot of practice. My clients typically gain mastery after about 8 weeks. So typically in my engagements, people hire me and we learn the skills in one session, and then we meet every week for 8 weeks for an hour, and we practice for these 8 weeks, and they go out and practice it in the real world. And we start with socially safe situations, so there's no risk of embarrassment. And what you learn to do is to, when you're confronted with anybody and you want to validate them, the first thing you do is you learn to ignore their words. Doesn't matter what they're saying. Angry words, doesn't matter. You heard it before, you can afford to ignore the words for a little while. That becomes a little challenging because we've been trained since young children that we have to pay attention to the words. Listen to me, right? The parental dictate. So we're flying against that parental dictate and we're going to ignore what they're saying. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to read their emotions. It turns out that through evolutionary biology, we are hardwired for reading other people's emotions quickly, efficiently, and accurately. We don't think we have that skill because we've been told for the last 3,000 years that what separates us from other animals is rationality and reasoning. Well, that turns out to be a complete myth. We are emotional beings. There's no such thing as rationality. That was a big shock for me as a lawyer, figuring that out. But basically, every decision we make, every behavior we engage in is emotional. And so now we've got to learn how to read emotions. But one of the problems we have is, one, we've got this cultural bias. And two, we've never been taught how to look at emotions as data. And we've never been taught how to structure emotional data in a way that we can access it. So one of the things that I teach people how to do is how to structure emotional data in a way that makes it accessible to our brains. And we can instantly, you just saw how when I demonstrated this at the top of the show, I just flowed through a whole series of emotions. That's because I've structured the data in a way that I can access. And I can just flow through it with basically a script. So, and then the third thing we do is we reflect back the emotional experiences of the speaker using a you statement, no I statements, and no questions. There's a study that came out this year. It was an artificial intelligence assessment of over 10,000 therapeutic interventions between therapists and clients. And the researchers were stunned because it showed that when therapists were self-referential, in other words, they used I statements, the trust level between the therapist and the client dropped. So wow. we even have science that tells us don't use I statements. That's why I'm so adamant about that. So you use a you statement and you continue reflecting the emotions until you get 4 autonomic relaxation responses. 1 is a nodding of the head. 2 is a yeah or exactly. 3 is a dropping of the shoulders. And 4 is a sigh of relief. And now you're done. It takes 90 seconds. And
do we need to have all 4 or one of them?
Well, you'll learn. It's discernment. That's why we have to practice over 8 weeks because
right.
Everything is different in how they're going to respond to this. They're all going to respond essentially in the same way. But you just you need to learn and get practice so that you can pick up on the clues that tell you that you're finished, that you're ready to move on to problem solving. But you're looking for those 4. You're looking for the relaxation response of some kind, and that typically you'll see all 4.
I want to thank you at this point, because one of my questions to you was, well, it's a 3-step process and it sounds easy, but what if I feel that I am not very good at identifying those emotions? And that's a relief to know that I do need to practice a little bit more and to train myself.
That's right.
And that there is a framework that allows me to do that.
That's right. It's like learning how to ride a bicycle. When you're 3 years old, you start on a tricycle. Then when you're 4 years old, you get the little bicycle with the training wheels. And then around 4.5 or 5, the training wheels come off and you crash a couple of times and dad's there holding, running alongside you, helping you keep going. All of a sudden, boom, you got it. And now you're off on freedom, right? At 5 years old. Same thing with affect labeling. You start off and it's really clungy and you feel really awkward and you feel like telling people how they feel seems like it's embarrassing or rude or patronizing, or how dare I interrupt somebody when they're speaking? And you learn with practice that that's exactly what you do. You everything about affect labeling flies in the face of what you think you know about listening. And so you have to have a little bit of courage in the beginning to overcome all of that cultural bias and training. And then once you get it and you see what happens, you'll say, my God, how come I didn't have this 20 years ago in my first marriage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it becomes a transformative skill that you just use all the time in every relationship.
That's amazing. That's amazing what you're saying. It's not just in a business setting. No. It can change your personal life as well.
That's right. And I work with a lot. That's right. I worked with a lot of high-performing couples, training them how to listen to each other, and especially older couples who have grandchildren, teaching them how to listen to their grandchildren and how to deal with difficult in-laws. And it's completely changed their relationships throughout their
family dynamics. Wow.
It's amazing.
Awesome. Great.
It's incredible how it works. You know, I've been married to my wife for 20 years. We never have fights. Yesterday, just by way of example, we were up I live in the central Sierra Nevada, south of Yosemite. Yesterday, we took our catamaran up to a high mountain lake where we'll have in a slip for the summer because it's incredible sailing up there. And we had to assemble this thing and put it all together. It took us 4 hours to get this boat in the water and somewhat saleable. And not a mean word, nothing. We did it. We had a lot of problems, but we just worked through them. And technical problems, putting all the pieces together. We're both sailors. We know how boats work, and so boats work. And yet we didn't have a mean word or anything between the two of us in 4 hours of a very complex, difficult, physically demanding project.
That's incredible. Great opportunity to learn as we are on this topic. So if someone who listens to us wants to learn that technique in more detail and master it as you master it, what do they do?
Well, if they really want to master it, they hire me to teach them how to do it. That's the fastest. It's the most expensive, but it's the fastest pathway to success. But if people just want to figure this out, then they can do a couple of things. Number one, they can go buy my book, De-Escalate, on Amazon and read that. And that'll give them kind of an overview of what this is all about. But also, because I'm so impressed with you and your listeners, I put together a little package for everybody that I call my Peace Under Pressure Kit. And this is for people who want the skill. They've got fights or arguments they're dealing with. Nothing has ever worked for them before. And they're finally at wit's end. And they gotta figure out what it is. And what I'll provide for you, and I'll tell you how to contact me in just a sec, is I've created a really cool little ChatGPT de-escalate advisor. And you literally put in the problem and it'll come back and tell you this is what you say and how you say it.
Oh my God.
Really cool. Called the de-escalate advisor. And then the second thing I'm doing, which I've never done before, is I've unlocked one of my online video courses called Dealing with Anger and Aggression. It's a 4-week online video course that starts with these skills and then teaches you all about anger and aggression and how to manage anger and aggression when you're confronted with it from other people. And it gets into some very sophisticated stuff. Absolutely free. This is a course I normally charge my clients $500 to $700 for. So I'm going to put this whole package together. And if you're interested in this and it's something that you want to learn, then all you need to do is DM me on LinkedIn and just put in the word Nina25. That way I'll know it comes from you, and we'll communicate on LinkedIn. I'll get your email address on LinkedIn, and then I'll send you all the material, and we'll go from there. So,
Oh my God, this is an incredible offer. Thank you. So generous, Doug. This is amazing. I will put all of that information in the show so it will be available there. But wow, this is so generous. Thank you so much. Girls and guys, that's for you. Go and find Doug Noll on LinkedIn, and it's yours. This is a fantastic opportunity. Thank you so much.
Douglas Noll would be the tag. So it's at Douglas, Noll, not Knoll, Noll.
Got it.
At Douglas Noll. Just DM me, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Okay, so now we know how we can master it. Am I allowed to talk a little bit about your fifth book?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
I just submitted the manuscript to the publisher 2 weeks ago. So
yes, and I'm very thankful. I had the privilege to read the manuscript. It's a book on leadership empathy, and I'm sure it's going to be a great success. It's absolutely amazing, and it's so timely and well written. I hope you don't mind if I quote how it's actually ending. Become the light that everyone wants to follow. You can make a difference, create a better future, and build a compassionate and connected world. Embrace that power and lead with empathy. This is so beautifully said, Doug. Thank you. I'm really grateful that you wrote that book. It is so relevant to our world today. And it is connected with the emotional intelligence, of course, because essentially empathy is the core competence, core skill for being self-aware and aware of others, or social awareness, as Daniel Goleman call it, right? Can we talk about empathy in leadership a little bit more? How do you define empathy?
Empathy is the learned skill of reading, interpreting, and reflecting back the emotional experience of another person. That is empathy. Nothing else is empathy. And what's very interesting is that all these people, whether you're anti-empathy like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, or you're pro-empathy, people throw around the word with no clue about what it really means. And it's important to understand that it's simply affect labeling as a learned skill. And when you engage in cognitive empathy through the skill of affect labeling, you are literally demonstrating to somebody else that they are being heard from their frame of reference. It's not about your understanding. It's about making sure that the other person feels heard and validated from their frame of reference. And that's what empathy is. It's not sympathy. It's not saying I understand or I get it or yeah, me too. It's none of that stuff. It is all about validating another person's emotional experience from their frame of reference. And what the beauty of it is that as you practice this skill, you increase your own emotional self-awareness and you increase your own ability to self-regulate your own emotions. And those are the three legs to emotional competency: awareness, regulation, self-regulation, and cognitive empathy. Practicing cognitive empathy develops everything else. And when your emotional competency rises, so does your emotional intelligence. And so you naturally grow your emotional intelligence by practicing these skills. You cannot learn emotional intelligence by itself. Emotional intelligence is a measure of a social intelligence. It's like saying I can increase my IQ. No. You can raise your emotional intelligence with emotional competence. That's right. So what are the skills that allow you to develop your emotional competency so that you can increase your emotional intelligence? And it turns out that affect labeling, which is cognitive empathy, is the only skill I found that actually allows you to do that in a very short period of time.
So everyone can learn it.
Anybody can.
And I think this is a very important message to all leaders and professionals out there. If you think, as I do sometimes, that I am not very emotionally versed and educated, you can learn it. You can educate yourself. You can practice it through ups and downs, learning and making your mistakes and recognizing that and learning again. And you can improve that skill, which is considered to be one of the most important skill for leaders in the 21st century. That's right?
That's right. I mean, if you have a belief that I can't learn empathy or I don't have that skill, I can't be empathetic, you are now being a slave to your cultural training, your cultural biases. Because our culture tells us that emotions are bad, emotions make us weak, emotions make us vulnerable, emotions are irrational, emotions are evil, all wrong. We're totally emotional beings. And you're just a slave to that cultural process. Once you abandon the cultural biases you were programmed into as a child, then learning empathy is like learning any other skill. It takes a little bit of time, a little bit of practice, but anybody can master it. Anybody. I mean, if I can teach murderers in cages how to do this, anybody can learn, right?
Okay, that's great. That's really great. Can we go back a little bit to your why? You've done so many amazing things in your life. You changed from the lawyer to peacemaker. Then you came up with that amazing strategy, effect labeling method and de-escalation method, and taught that to thousands of people. And you also wrote 5 books, essentially. The 5th will be published soon. These are all amazing accomplishments. What is the driver behind it? What motivates you to do all these things?
Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor and then became a psychiatrist, wrote a really beautiful book on the meaning of life. And what he writes, which resonates with me, is service to others. What gives us meaning in life is serving others. So my why is serving others by showing them how to never have a fight or argument again in their life, unless they want to. But it's a choice. But once you have the skill, you never have to have an uncomfortable moment. You never have to have a difficult conversation. You never have to have a fight or argument. If anybody tries to pick an argument with you, you know exactly what to say and how to say it and calm them down in less than 90 seconds with complete 100% confidence and complete compassion for somebody who's having an upset moment. And you go through life, nothing can disturb you, your equilibrium, because you know all about emotions. And people are just having an emotional moment. You know what to do with that. It's not a big deal. It's easy. Whether it's a 2-year-old having a tantrum or a 40-year-old having a tantrum, doesn't matter. So my why is teaching people how to do that, because the way I like to describe it is, imagine every time we listen to somebody, we de-escalate them, we calm them down, we throw a little pebble into the pond of peace. Imagine what it would be like if we had a whole bunch, hundreds of thousands of people every day throwing pebbles into the pond of peace. We would have a tsunami of peace, and our society would look very different than it looks today. Very different, for the better. And so my why is, that's why. Let's create a tsunami of peace and help people get out of this fighting and arguing that is so unnecessary and painful, and be able to live happy, productive lives with loving relationships.
Love that metaphor, creating tsunami of peace. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. This is really amazing. You just drew that picture in my mind, so I hope everyone else sees that as well. That's wonderful, wonderful picture. So Doug, as we are approaching the end of our conversation, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners who are insurance professionals and leaders seeking inspiration, bold ideas, and actionable strategies?
Just make this mind shift. The people you work with are human beings, and they're emotional. And no matter how much you wish they might be Mr. Spocks, half Vulcan, half human, they aren't. They're emotional, and they're going to bring those emotions wherever they go, because that's what they are. They're emotional beings. And if you want to be a leader that everyone wants to follow, and you want to be a leader that leads productive teams and stops the dysfunction and stops the backbiting and the loss of productivity and all the other things that happen with poor leadership, learn how to listen to their emotions. And that will be the single most powerful leadership skill that you can develop and deploy. And it will pay off in orders of magnitude over whatever it costs you to learn how to do it.
Thank you. I I hope everyone else who is listening to us is running towards LinkedIn right now to enter Nina25 and send you a message. Can I do that as well?
You can do that as well.
I definitely want that course.
I've already got your email address, so I'll just send you
Doug, thank you very much for the wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you coming so early today because it's an early morning in California.
Yep, sun's coming up over the mountains.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners today before we end?
Only don't let your limiting beliefs get in the way of finding true happiness. We all have limiting beliefs. I can't do this. Oh, I'll never do this. Oh, that sounds too hard. Oh, I don't like emotions. That sounds like touchy-feely soft skill bullshit. Those are all limiting beliefs. And, take it from me. I haven't described myself, but I am just to give you a quick, brief background, I'm a airplane and helicopter pilot, a secondary black belt, a Tai Chi master. I play jazz violin. I'm a level 3 certified ski instructor. I whitewater rafting and kayaking. I don't do class 4 anymore. I'm 74. I'm a little old for that, but I still whitewater raft. Obviously sail, catamarans, not sailboats, but racing boats. I mean, I can do a lot. Nobody's ever going to call me touchy-feely or soft or squishy or anything like that. If you were to see me, you would see a man who is 6'1" and 215 pounds and just solid muscle. So don't think that because your limiting beliefs around emotions are the truth, that they're there to serve you. Those are cultural biases that you have been programmed with, because up until these skills were developed, emotions could go awry, and your parents were well-meaning in telling you not to be emotional because there weren't any skills that really worked. Now we have the skills that work. So drop your cultural biases, learn the skills, and start serving people around you. Throw that pebble into the pond of peace every single day and watch how your life transforms.
And listen to that advice. People, listen to that advice. Thank you. Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome. Would
you like to tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, my email address is Doug, D-O-U-G, at Doug Noll, DOUGNOLL.com. I'm a sole practitioner. I don't have an entourage, so I answer all my own emails. My website is DougNoll.com. You can find me on LinkedIn at Douglas Noll, and you can Google me or ChatGPT me, and you'll learn more about me than you would ever care to know.
And remember, send DM on LinkedIn, and you'll get this fantastic course free if you enter Nina25 in the DM. Doug, thank you very much. I am taking so much knowledge from our conversation today. Really appreciate you found time to talk to me.
Well, thank you.
And have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Insurance Leaders Lab podcast. If you like what you've heard, please like it and leave a review on your preferred podcast platform. If there is anyone else in your circle who can benefit from listening, please share this link with them. Remember, this is a podcast for you, and your opinion matters to me, so if there is any topic you'd like to bring up, please send me a note to nina@ninashepherd.com. I'll see you back in 2 weeks on Thursday morning. Bye for now.